Wes from Carl Wesley Sewing Patterns here. Today, I'm going to show you how to make your own designer elastic using a sewing machine. I previously owned and designed a men's underwear line, and I started creating my own elastic after I got bored of using the same old, plain, solid color elastics over and over again on my products. Here's an example of a men's brief that I created the elastic myself using my sewing machine. Making custom elastic waistbands can really go a long way in elevating the look of your finished garment. The materials that you will need are solid color knit elastic, all-purpose polyester sewing thread, small magnets which can be used to guide the elastic through your sewing machine, and stretch sewing machine needles. The most important thing is that the type of elastic you are using is knit elastic and not a different type. And this is because knit elastic retains its integrity after stitching through it. This isn't necessarily true of all other types of elastic. I will drop links in the description below to all the materials used to make it easier for you to find them. So I've already got my sewing machine threaded with the color I want to use, and I have my stretch sewing needle already inserted. We're going to pretend I'm going to make my own waistband for a pair of underwear I'm making. So I've got my elastic waistband cut already, and we need to place this underneath the presser foot so that it's directly in the center of the foot. We want it to stitch directly down the middle of that elastic. And I'm going to use my magnets on the throat plate of the machine to help guide it perfectly through. Now, you definitely can just manually guide it through, and that's totally fine, but I want to make sure my elastic comes out perfectly centered. Now, here's where we're going to do some creativity and use some experimentation to figure out what we can use as a design on our elastic waistband. Now, my sewing machine has over 500 stitches that are automatically built in, and even a lot of the inexpensive sewing machines on the market these days have a lot of decorative stitches built in. The thing we have to think about is that the stitch is going to have to be something that stretches. For example, a regular straight stitch on our elastic is not going to work at all because it won't stretch. But something, say, like this squiggly stitch or this Greek key stitch, those probably have enough stitches built in that they will stretch with the elastic. You're really just going to have to experiment and compare a piece of stitched elastic to an unstitched one to see that it maintains its stretch and its integrity. So I think for this sample, I'm going to choose this stippling squiggly stitch right here because I've never used it. And I'm just going to leave the settings as they normally are for that stitch. It's not a requirement, but my sewing machine does have a really nice feature where if you unplug the foot pedal, you can let the machine stitch on its own. And I use that here because once I get it set up, it will just keep stitching along this whole length of elastic until I tell it to stop, and I don't have to worry about manually depressing the foot pedal that whole time. After you start stitching, you may need to adjust those magnets a little bit to keep the stitching perfectly centered. Something important that I want to note here is that you want to make sure that elastic doesn't have any tension on it at all to prevent it from going through the machine smoothly. And that's going to make sure that your stitches are all even along the entire length of stitching. So I already mentioned this briefly in the video, but I want to talk about it again because it's super important. And that's that you have to use knit elastic for this tutorial. And the reason is that knit elastic functions exactly the same, and it doesn't change it at all by sewing through it. It's actually often sewn directly to the garment. And that's not necessarily true of all different types of elastic. So for this reason, knit elastic tends to be what I keep on hand for all my different sewing projects. So here we have our finished elastic now that I took it off the machine. It's kind of fun looking, and I would definitely use this on my own project as perhaps an underwear waistband. Now, something important is that we want to test it, make sure that it stretches, and let's compare it to the unstitched elastic. Far as I can tell, it basically has the same amount of stretch, and it doesn't look like it's significantly changed the elastic in any way. And that's really all there is to it. I hope you enjoy making your own designer elastic for all your different sewing projects. If you liked this video and want to see more sewing tutorials, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel for my weekly videos. Thanks for watching.